Hello, this is Emilio from EcoEvolver. We're on day 4 of the No Impact Project. And before I got into today's topic, I thought I would just quickly recap what we've been working on, just to give you a sense of how this is all building up and working towards the 7 days. So we began by making a commitment to buy no new stuff. If we need to get something, we can find alternate ways of getting it, borrowing it, using a reuse center, lots of options. I personally haven't needed to purchase anything new, and that's been going great. On the second day, we were asked to look at our trash and what our waste looked like. How much of it was compostable? How much of it was recyclable? How much of it is going to end up in the landfill? And to start looking at, when we buy stuff, food, clothing, whatever, to become aware of where the waste and the trash is going so that we can try to eliminate it. That's been going really well. The majority of my trash comes from food packaging. Things like pasta, rice, all these sorts of things. It can be bought in bulk. I have some of it in containers. And so the majority of what I'm recycling and collecting throughout this week is going to be largely food packaging, which is really encouraging and still also kind of depressing. On the third day, which was my best day so far, we were looking at what does it take to reduce our carbon footprint when it comes to transportation. And I had a great day. I was walking around, and one of the things that I notice now when I'm walking around is how many people idle their cars at the grocery store or along major roads when they're waiting for a friend who's just run inside to pick up something really quick. Today I took notice of 4 vehicles on my way to and from a meeting, and I don't think that that's atypical. So I think that that's an area where we can all start pitching in, is just becoming a little bit more present about when we're idling our cars. So that transitions to a little article that I found today that I just wanted to share with you that I thought was really interesting. So this was published by the Medical News Today website, and they're identifying some research carried out by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where they identified that people diagnosed with heart disease should avoid areas where traffic pollution is high. So what they're identifying here is that high levels of pollution increases the risk of heart attack for about 6 hours after exposure. Because what's happening here is the pollution is being absorbed through the lungs and it's causing the blood to thicken. So if you've been diagnosed with a heart condition, thick blood and that can form clots is a really big issue. So what they're trying to say here is, if you have a heart condition, stay away from high traffic areas. So it would seem to make sense that if we can reduce the traffic in these areas, we're actually making it healthier and safer for people as opposed to more harmful and dangerous. And I know for myself, I want to leave a healthy world where everyone can enjoy the benefits of a beautiful day, and not just those who are in optimum physical health. Interestingly, today another article was released that was identifying how there are lobbyists in the car industry in the United States that are proposing that the air pollution regulation standards are too high and that they should be laxed, because the EPA has proposed higher regulations for emissions on cars in the US. And so, of course, car manufacturers are against these sorts of measures because it requires more time, effort, and money on their part to make these cars meet these standards. Okay, so here we go into day 4. Day 4 is about eating local, organic, healthy food. So a big part of the No Impact Project focuses on eating locally because they identified that farming practices are one of the largest emitters of carbon dioxide and methane, as well as using fossil fuels for the majority of the growing process. Fossil fuels are required to put nutrients in the land, fossil fuels are required to turn the land, fossil fuels are required to maintain the vegetation, maintain the animals. Every aspect of industrial farming requires petrochemicals. And so if we can become mindful about where our food is coming from and who's producing it and how they're producing it, then indirectly we can start having our voice heard by these large industrial farms and have them consider alternative ways of producing our food. So that's why in the No Impact Project, they're very adamant about using farmers markets and local farmers as a way of gathering the majority of your food. If you can find a local farmer at a local farmers market or in your area, you can talk to them directly about whether or not they use pesticides, whether or not they use organic or petrochemical fertilizers. And you can build a relationship with them so that you can potentially take in your own packaging so that you don't have to use the packaging. I know that in my farmer's market here, because of the safety regulations imposed by the municipality, very few of the people at the farmer's market can actually sell their goods without a plastic bag. So it really is important to build relationships with these local producers because you can work with them and you can start really reducing your impact in a meaningful and effective way. Another aspect of eating locally that's really important in my city here in Edmonton is that because of our altitude and because of our growing season, over 80% of the food that the city brings in is not produced locally. It comes from all over the world. So while these beautiful peppers and these carrots are grown locally, these apples are grown locally, this rice, although packaged in Toronto, probably doesn't come from Toronto. And these beans, which again are packaged in Ontario, probably don't come from Ontario. So the idea here is, what can we swap? What can we look at so that we're using less petrochemicals, we're eating healthier food, we're bringing in less toxins and less pesticides, and we're filling our body with healthy food and we're putting less waste into the environment. So one of the steps today in day 4 was to quickly calculate the carbon footprint of our meal. And this was really exciting to me because I've seen carbon footprint calculators for a home, but I haven't actually seen one for a meal. So if you quickly take a look on the handout for the No Impact Project, there's a website in there. I will post it at the bottom of this video on YouTube when I get a chance. The application is really great, it's really visual. You get a picture of a frying pan and then you just drag and drop different items into the pan. So I dragged some rice because I had some rice, I dragged some raw seasonal vegetables and some nuts, and it quickly came up with a number of 236. Now to put that in perspective, they have estimated that on average, an individual needs about 4,500 points a day for their nutritional value. So I just created a dish that was well under the daily maximum. And if you consider the carbon emissions for the food that I'm eating, this meal that I produced about 1/4 pound of CO2. They estimate that if you have 4,500 points of food a day, then every year you are going to be producing around 3 tons of CO2 just for your food. So right away we can start seeing that if we eat organic and we eat locally sourced foods, we're dramatically having an impact on all of the places where petrochemicals are used to produce our food. And that's really awesome. That's really exciting to me, and I know that's really exciting to lots of people in my community. Before I leave today, I just wanted to list out some of the strategies that they listed in today's section of the No Impact Project. And the first one that they pointed out was consider reducing the amount of meat that you eat a week. Some people like to have a piece of meat with every meal, and I've been vegan for a few months here and there. I'm not really great at it, and I've been a vegetarian for almost 15 years, so reducing meat isn't that big a deal for me. But I know that it can be pretty hard for some people. So just reducing the number of times you have meat a week can also have a substantial savings. So I encourage you to consider reducing the amount of meat that you're eating. Of course, we've already talked about the benefits of organic and locally sourced food. You have the reduced chemicals, the reduced petrochemicals, and you have a relationship with someone who's directly making the food. And that for me is just as a powerful motivator as healthy food. Of course, it seems obvious. Let's try to cut down on the amount of processed food we're eating and the amount of packaging that comes with our food. If you go out for food and you go to Subway, consider taking your own container. Say no to the bag. Take your own utensils. I do this daily, and I enjoy the look on their faces when I ask them to put my food in a container or on a napkin as opposed to the typical packaging. The last two, the options that they suggest here, obviously you could grow your own food. That's a fantastic way of reducing your carbon footprint. You know exactly where your food is coming from then, but sometimes that isn't an option for people, so I'll put that out there. And then lastly, to recycle and compost. It's very easy for me to recycle the packaging for this pasta. It's made of cardboard and is easy to go into recycling. Usually, most of the products that you buy nowadays will have a label indicating how much of the material comes from recycling, where it's coming from, and of course, to compost the food scraps that you're leaving when you're making your meals, or if you're not able to eat all your leftovers. So let's consider where the food goes when we're done with it and we haven't had a chance to fully enjoy it. Alright, that sums up day 4 of the No Impact Project for me, and I hope that you're enjoying the No Impact Project. I hope you can get on it and encourage your friends to get on it. This is a great way of getting clear about where you're at with your food and your life, and I'm going to post some resources under this video when I get a chance. So, have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.